Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and tonight I'm joined by Kevin McCluskey, all the way in from Budapest in Hungary. Kevin, I hope you had a brilliant New Year.
I did indeed, Paul. Yeah, thank you very much. Likewise, I hope you had a lovely new year, and same to everyone else that's watching. And because it's one of the few phrases that I've mastered in Hungarian, I'll give you Boldog Ujevet Kívánok, which is I wish you a happy new year, my friend.
Every
So, yeah,
time, every time you speak Hungarian, you sound like a villain. You sound villainous.
well, he's not quite sitting on my lap just now, but he's next to me. I've got the cat here as well. So if I was
Don't
just to
stroke
like
it.
stroke him, I could be like Blofeld.
Don't stroke it. Dr. Claw is better get. We're going to run through the teams this evening at Celtic at St Mirren Park to play St Mirren, of course, Stephen Robinson, St Mirren. And of course, we will be buoyed by going 3 games, 3 consecutive wins for the first time this season, Kevin. And of course, the top of the table clash against Rangers resulted in a 2-1 victory for Brendan Rodgers' men. So let's have a look through the team lines. I can say, as we speak, there is another few games in the Scottish Premiership ongoing. Rangers are 3-1 up, and the goal they conceded, Kevin McCluskey, came from a penalty kick. Wow.
I, I find that difficult to believe. I
What
need to see
happened?
that one with my own eyes before I can believe it. But I'm glad that I was sitting down when you told me that news.
I know. I bet it was less than a penalty than the David Turnbull incident against Celtic. But anyway, who would have thought that just as it was going to become a world record and make global news, that they would get a penalty? Anyway, I'm not a conspiracist. Absolutely not. Here we go. Celtic line up as follows. It's Joe Hart, Alistair Johnston at right back with Greg Taylor at left back, the central defensive partnership. And we've had a few of these this season, Kevin. It's Liam Scales and Mike Nawrocki. In the midfield, Callum McGregor, Matt O'Reilly, and Paulo Bernardo keeps his place. And up top, we have Dyson Maeda, Luis Palma, and Kyogo Furuhashi. On the bench for Celtic, Bain, Lagerbielke, and Abada. We've got Yang, Turnbull, O, Hatate, Ralston, and Mikey Johnston. Now, we'll run through the team in more detail, Kevin, but what's your first thoughts on that? No real surprises, is there?
No, none at all. I'm very happy actually with that selection. I didn't think he would make any changes or make many changes. The only ones the enforced change, of course, with
Mm-hmm.
Nawrocki coming in for Welsh being injured. But we know what Brendan's like, and every now and again he throws a wee spanner into the works of what you think is the strongest available team. But I think today he's gone for it, and this is the last game, is it not, before the winter breakdown anyway?
Yeah.
So don't make any changes if you don't have to. Go your strongest team. This is the strongest team. St Mirren Park's been a difficult venue for us recently, so we're not going to underestimate them or take any chances. And yeah, looking at that team, if they can put in a similar performance like they did at the weekend, I think we'll be two happy lads come full time.
Let's hope we are, Kevin. Absolutely. And I think the suggestion was made on the 12:30 bulletin by one of our commenters that we have seen a slightly different Celtic in the last 3 games. Not only a Celtic that's winning games, obviously on the back of the 2 defeats against Kilmarnock and Hearts, but more of an attacking team selection and game plan whereby straight off the bat, we've got a higher tempo, we're playing a higher line, we're getting their defence on the back foot a wee bit more. Have you sensed that yourself, Kevin, watching the last 3 games?
I have a bit. Aye, there was. I think it was the phrase that you came out with against Dundee in the last one before the Rangers game. There it was like the shackles had come off,
Mm-hmm.
and it feels that way a little bit. The only thing that kind of baffles me in a sense is why we've never done it before,
Mm-hmm.
because the way that we've been playing, like if we haven't scored a goal in the first 20, 25 minutes, then we'd become a bit pedestrian and slow, and it was obvious what we were doing, and teams were getting used to it. We were sitting deep and making it difficult. But in the games that we've come out and attacked, we've been able to blow sides away in the first half an hour. And even against Dundee, when it was goalless at half time, it could have been 4-0. We had the chances. We were dominating that game. And when we do that, it's very difficult for anyone else to counter it, because we are streets ahead of everyone else when we're on a day and when we're attacking in numbers. So it's been a nice thing to see, and let's hope it continues into this game as well.
Yeah, let's hope so, because we were trying to break it down, Kevin, after the defeat against Kilmarnock, saying that we had 4 games, between Feyenoord and uh, you know the final game in preparation before the Rangers game, and I seen it almost like a micro period of time where you say, right, we need to focus on getting the momentum. People were saying Feyenoord's a dead rubber, no point, and etc., all this kind of stuff, because there was nothing to play for. But I seen it slightly differently, and I took the kind of view that you start off with Feyenoord and you build this momentum, you figure out what your best team is for the Rangers game. That takes you into Hearts, and then Livingston, then Dundee, and then you're prepared, and you've got a bit of confidence. The team is flowing. Everybody, you're looking at that starting 11, and everybody is the guys you want to be in the team. There was a few question marks around wingers, for example, or the Bernardo position. There were a few question marks about Kyogo's form. There was quite a few things, and you wanted to be prepared going into the Rangers game. Of course, after the beginning of that 4-game period, ending in a victory against Feyenoord, we go out and we have probably the worst performance of the season against Hearts. We were terrible against Hearts, really, really poor. And then it was almost back to the drawing board. But I do feel that the games against Livingston and Dundee, they weren't vintage. They weren't spectacular victories or anything like that, Kev. But they gave you enough sense that, as you said before, the shackles were off and we went into the Rangers game. I think one of the biggest preparations that we had in those 2 games was the introduction of Paulo Bernardo. Now, we had seen him in Europe. We had seen him playing domestically. I just don't think he'd stood out a great deal. And he goes to the game there at the weekend at Celtic Park, sold out Celtic Park, great atmosphere. And he's one of the guys who stood up. He stepped up. And he's a player, Kev, who the conversations would have been with us regarding what was the future for him. Nat Phillips had been sent away back down the road at Liverpool. We knew it was short term. There was obviously an option to keep him. We decided against it. Bernardo, there's always an option to end a loan deal early. We've done it with Maurice Jens. We've done it with Olivier Abelgard. And, I was on that fence at that point, Kev. In the 3 games, Livy, Dundee, Rangers, he's completely turned my view on him around. And I'm now thinking, right, a decent end to this season, a decent second half of the season from Bernardo, showing us what he has done in the last 3 games, particularly against Rangers. And you're going to do everything you can to keep him.
You are, and I'm going to own it. I think it might even have been as recent as the Dundee game at half time before he scored the opening goal. When we're talking about him, and I've said just get rid of him. I think he's a good player, but he's only up for the European games, the game against Rangers. After that, he's not going to be any use to us in domestic football, probably. The way that he's playing, just cut your cord and get rid of him and develop the players that are ours that are on our books. But these last few performances have definitely made me rethink that. Maybe he just needs games, because no one had really been given 2 or 3 games in Hatate's jersey to go and prove themselves and get match fit and all that. But those last couple of games, like you say, he stepped up big time. His goal against Dundee was, I'm not going to say it was it's not a great classic goal, but it's a great kind of attacking midfielder's goal, just making that run in there. It was like reminiscent of Stan Petrov getting in behind the defence and making that run and beyond the forwards. And then against Rangers, I thought he was brilliant. He was absolutely masterful in that game. And the technique on the goal, I think, shows the level of the player that he is. So, yeah, if he's in the team just now and if he's keeping a fit or 75% fit Rio Hatate at the side, who you would normally have expected to walk back in it, if he can keep that form going, then absolutely. You've got to consider that he's an option for the summer. And I don't know how much the agreed fee is or the whatever, but there was a report recently that I'd seen it was like 1.5 million. And if that's true, because I was thinking it was more in the 6-7 range that you were paying for Jota. If it's 1.5 million, it becomes a no-brainer. You bring him in because he is a quality player. He is someone that Rodgers has trusted in the big European games. He was brilliant against Rangers at the weekend there. And if he's a player on form and he can keep that going, then we do have a player in our hands if we can get him in permanently.
Yeah, I seen that report. I think it was Football Scotland reported that it was 1.5. But
yeah.
to be honest, Kev,
I don't know how
I
true
think
it is, but
I think that's a loan fee. I think the 1.5 is the loan
Right.
fee. The 67 million euros is a fee that's also been quoted. And when you think about the kind of fee that you're paying to Benfica for a player who's come through the academy, right? And they put the massive sell-on clause. They do this in Portugal. They did it with Ryan Gold, remember? When he signed for Sporting Lisbon, there was some ridiculous fee in there. But if you do a deal like we did with Benfica for Jota, then you obviously negotiate a different fee, and we did that successfully with them. And I'm not comparing Bernardo to Jota. Of course, I'm not. I mean, it's only been a few games that I've really been impressed with him in. So yeah, if it comes to the crux, Kev, that's a massive. Listen, someone said earlier on, we've got used to mediocrity in terms of what we're paying. That is still a big fee for Celtic to pay, 5-6 million quid. It's a big fee, as was the 4.3 for Nawrocki. It was the other player that I felt was kind of thrown into the mix there at the weekend. And for me, he came through with flying colours. I know that it might have been a wee bit rough around the edges, Kev, to be fair, but I've seen enough from him, both in a defensive sense and also with regards to his distribution, to suggest that he is going to have a big part to play in the second half of the season.
Yeah, he's another one that I thought had a really good game when he came on Saturday. He looked a bit like a player who hadn't played for 2 or 3 months, which is understandable, considering that is the case. There were a few times where maybe his distribution wasn't great, or his positioning to start with wasn't great. But I think his recovery and everything was brilliant. He made a few good kind of not last ditch tackles, but good recovery tackles. He was winning the ball, and I thought he looked really good. But one thing that I noticed about him when he came on was he also had the look of somebody that just wasn't fazed by it.
Yeah,
and I know it was all Celtic fans. It was 60,000 of us, and it was a more pleasant environment to come into than if it was at Ibrox, for example. But it's still a massive game, and the game was still in the balance at that time. For a guy that hasn't played football for a while, he knows maybe one mistake lets them in. I mean, obviously, if it fell to Dessers, it was going to be fine anyway. He would miss it, but you don't want to get into that habit of gifting chances away. But he came on, he just looked completely unfazed by the whole thing. Anytime he maybe did make a wee mistake or lapse somewhere, he recovered. And generally, I thought he looked pretty assured throughout that game. So if he gets fit again as well, I'm sure those wee lapses will come out of his game.
yeah.
You've then got that £4 million or €4 million defender there alongside Carter Vickers and Scales. You've got 3 pretty good centre backs going for 2 positions, and you get competition for places, which can only be a benefit for us.
Well, that I think long term, I've always kind of thought about Carter Vickers plus another central defender of that ilk. But what's then happened is Liam Scales has thrown his hat into the mix, and we didn't expect it, so he's still got the jersey. Football Scotland, it was that reported that fee. Something else caught my eye from them today, which I felt really personified the person who made the quote. They were talking about the handball, in inverted commas, by Alistair Johnston and the furore that has ensued following that. And I think that, when it comes down to it, right, there's a level of credibility that is lost when you hear some of the comments made by so-called pundits. Chris Boyd, right? I'm quoting verbatim. It's verbatim, right? Let's get it right. Abdallah Silma was offside. He was offside, right? So surely that's the end of the sentence then, right? That's it. Surely? No, it goes on. It goes on. In the build-up to the Alistair Johnston handball incident at Celtic Park, the correct decision was reached. Okay, right? That sounds good.
Right.
But
I think we're all in agreement so far.
But, Kevin, the way they got there and the clear as mud explanation is the issue. That's the issue because it stinks. All right, so you've been hard done by, even though the correct decision was met. Kev, this is what we're dealing with. Honestly, when you try to engage in a discussion with someone who is so, entrenched in that level of bias, it is frightening. And I think I've had a I think I've had a load of it in the last 48 hours, if I'm being honest. But you know what? I'm just having a bit of fun with it. But yeah, that is raged on and raged on and raged on, Kev. We spoke about the spitting incident, Balogun, and the way that they have reprogrammed their mind to try and find some kind of mental gymnastic way of finding out if someone spits in the direction of another human being that it cannot possibly be an assault if it doesn't hit them is frightening. But hey, we probably shouldn't expect any more. I've not read out the St Mirren team yet, so I'm going to do that just in a wee second. Here we go. There's the Celtic team. St Mirren are lining up as follows: Hemming, Bolton, Tanser, Taylor, Flynn, Mandron, Kiltie, Gogic, Boyd Muntz, Olusanya and Fraser, who is captaining the side today. Of course, managed by Stephen Robinson, a very competent manager who seems to get a team like Motherwell or like St Mirren, gets them very well drilled, well organised, difficult to break down, Kev. And I don't think it's going to be any different tonight.
No, I don't think it is. But can we go back to Chris Boyd and his comments? I mean, it's outrageous. This is a guy that gets paid to go on Sky Sports and give his expert insights and analysis on it. And all he is, he's a fan with a mic on that program, and he can't hide the rage that he's got because the right decision was made in the wrong way for his liking. It's baffling.
It is baffling.
They talk about the Celtic fans having an entitlement because we didn't win 10 in a row because we got so used to winning everything. I mean, that whole comment that you've come out with is just full of his entitlement. He believes they should get a penalty because they're Rangers, because he didn't like the explanation that's come out as to why it wasn't given, even though he admits it was never a penalty because the boy's offside. It's unbelievable. I've been hearing that phrase, that mental gymnastics, coming out a few times, and I love it. It makes me laugh and chuckle every time I hear it. But that's what it is.
They've
got to go through that.
They do. And when you are shown video evidence from, I think there's 3 different angles now. There's the camera angle from the host broadcaster, and another angle, and then there's a fan angle from the crowd, where you see quite clearly that phlegm is leaving the mouth of the player in the direction of a Celtic fan. Doesn't matter if it hits them. There is no such thing as attempted assault in Scots law. It's just assault, right? I mean, if you throw a knife at somebody and it just misses their head, it's still a crime, And the issue that I've got with that is you can't even have an adult conversation about it, Kev. You cannot even have an adult conversation about it. It's there, and you can see it in beautiful Technicolor. Therefore, their eyes have been reprogrammed not to see it. It's incredible. Chancer, great to see you coming in. I hope you're having a great start to 2024. Happy New Year to you. Please enjoy the game tonight. I hope you do. Jungle Lion, you just want your 3 points on the board and get out of town. I get that, because what happens after tonight, Kev, is you can then replenish. You can bring new players in during January. You can get everybody up to speed. Carter, Vickers, Hatate, Abada, everybody fit. I know we're losing a few for the Asian Cup when it comes round. But yeah, there is a feeling of that. But I also think, and I said this earlier, going into tonight's game, after the highs of winning the game against Rangers, there is a sense that I want a performance tonight, Kev.
Yes, absolutely. So to go back to what you were saying before about St Mirren, and they will be really well organised. That's one of the things that you're going to get from a Stephen Robinson team. We've always enjoyed our games against his teams because you know that it's going to be a proper game. Right? They're maybe not going to be the most open side, and they're not going to play the best football against you or have a go so much, but they really make you work for the 3 points.
Yeah.
And you feel like you've really earned them 9 times out of 10 against them. So I'm expecting another game like that where it's going to be tough, it's going to be difficult. They might be on a bit of a bad run. It's one I think they've got. So they're not in great form, but I think we've seen this before. When we come up against a team like this, they'll raise their game because they're playing Celtic, and so they should. So it's up to us to match it and raise our game as well. This is the final game before the winter shutdown. It's the old one for me of I want everyone to be given 110%, leave everything out on the pitch today. If you take a knock, as long as it's not a leg break or anything like that, but go in there, take a knock, take a dead leg, because you've got 3 or 4 weeks for it to calm down, and you'll be fit again. Just absolutely batter them today, in a positive sense, of course. By just going out there, playing that aggressive, attacking front foot football that we know we can play,
Mm-hmm.
and as I say, just leave everything on the park and come away with the 3 points, and we'll all be very, very happy if that's what happens.
Yeah, I think you're right. We'll run through the team in more detail, Kev, and obviously cast our mind back to the game against Rangers and the performances therein. You and Boy Martin, always a pleasure to see you. Let's finish on a high with a good performance and convincing win. I agree with that. I think that if we do that, that the Rangers game wasn't us lifting our standards, lifting our levels for the big one, and then they come back down against St Mirren. So I do think a performance would be great this evening. Double Denim, great to see you. Hail, hail, boys. Come on the hoops. Happy with the lineup, hoping Kyogo does a business again. And keen to see Nawrocki and Bernardo continue their form 4-1 Celtic. I think we've touched on both of these players. When it comes to Nawrocki, you also look at the partnership between him and Scales. And I think what we've got now is we've got two players out the back who have got the distribution, Kev. We've been lauding the ability of Scales all season to find a man. He's brilliant at that wee dink over. He likes that pass over the top. Got a couple of assists as a result of that. And instead of, the Carter Vicker Starfelt kind of game plan where it was passing back and forth to each other, bringing Joe Hart into it. And when you looked at the amount of passes they were making, they never ever made as many passes to anybody else on the park than each other, Carter Vickers and Starfelt. I think there's going to be a wee bit more of an adventurous nature to the distribution out the back tonight, because both those players, Nawrocki and Scales, have shown that they can do it.
Yeah, and I think if you've watched any of the last few games, or pretty much any game we've played this season, whenever we have tried to be a bit more passive and just passing it around at the back, opposition teams are just putting 2 banks of 5 up, basically. They're making it incredibly difficult for us to break through, and we don't have the same movement like we did last season. Anytime when we've allowed the centre backs to miss a player out with a pass and it's going forward, we're getting in behind quicker. So there's a few of these things, that kind of these tactical changes, that if you watch us for long enough, you just know that it makes sense for us to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those two at the back, Nawrocki seems to be more direct when he's wanting to get rid of the ball. He's looking to find somebody out wide that can take us forward. Scales has just been, his whole season has just been incredible. The rise from the player that we would happily have driven to any airport in the country to fly him to wherever his next destination was going to be in a first choice. And yeah, he's got that little ball over the top that maybe at times he uses it a bit too much, but it's there, and he can release somebody, and he's got it in his locker that he can pick out the pass. So I think we will see that, and that'll help us with that playing on the front foot style that has helped us over the last couple of games.
Without a doubt, Kev. There's another thing I want to speak about in relation to centre halves, and that's the fact that Lagerbielke makes a return to the bench this evening. He is, at this moment in time, our backup because of the injuries, of course, to Carter Vickers and Welsh. The fact that Nat Phillips is away back down to Liverpool, your only options then are Lagerbielke or Kobayashi, who's still in the building. But for how long, who knows? Liam was saying earlier on, obviously, listening to Japanese media, Liam has said that there's not really been much in the way of any kind of speculation around Kobayashi returning to Japan. However, you do expect him to move on this January, Kev. It doesn't make sense to have a player that's not contributing. But it just shows you, though, the way that this season has gone with regards to injuries. Kobayashi, as we sit here right now, is the second backup. He is actually the second backup as we sit here now because of the centre half injury situation. So there's a few bits there to unpack. First one being Nat Phillips has left the building. How's he going to be remembered?
Will he be remembered? Really?
Good answer.
I'll forget about him by the time we're finished. If not the pre-match, then by half time. He was hopeless.
Is that it?
That's it.
Tell me a player that you're going to put him in the same bracket as them.
Oh, I guess the obvious one's Shane Duffy, you would say, because he came up on loan as well. But I want to think of someone else that's a wee bit more obscure. Give me time, I'll try and think of someone.
What about Michael Gray? Remember he came in on loan under Martin O'Neill.
No,
Remember
Michael Gray done all right, did he? No, he was decent on the left. I'm going to go with either of them. I know one of them's still with us, but they're both equally as useless in a way. Johnny Kenny or John Joe Kenny. That's who he's up there with.
Wow. I mean, that is a right slap in the dish for him, isn't it? When we also look at Lagerbielke, then what does it mean for him? The fact that he's out in the cold, right? We were talking about the fact that it was almost bookended his Celtic career. The red card against Feyenoord away versus the winning goal against Feyenoord at home, and we're all singing Lager, Lager, Lager for those who were into train spotting back in the day and Britpop and everything else that was happening. However, it did seem pretty clear that the player would be moved on in January. Does the injuries to Carter Vickers and Welsh make any difference to that situation, do you feel?
Depends how serious they are. I think if we go into the period after the winter shutdown, you've got a fit Nawrocki, Scales, and a fit Carter Vickers. I don't think it makes any difference, to be honest. I think because then Welsh becomes fourth choice. So I feel sorry for the lad because I had high hopes for him when he came in. I didn't think he was too terrible in these first few games. You know, he looked like there was rough edges there that if he could just polish them off, he'd be a decent player.
Mm-hmm.
Feyenoord away has obviously kind of ruined him a little bit. And then obviously there's the talk that Rodgers just doesn't fancy him and he's right out the picture. So I feel sorry for him. He's probably been a good player who's been brought in under false pretenses into the wrong club at the wrong time. But I don't see, unless the injuries to Carter Vickers and Welsh are particularly serious, then I don't see him having a big part to play in the second half of the season. He'll be fifth choice, and fifth choice won't get him a game.
No, I've thought of a player to compare him
Go
to.
for it.
We've obviously talked about Nat Phillips. Stefan Honcho.
Oh,
remember him?
There's
Martin
a
O'Neill
name.
signed
I
him.
do indeed.
Yeah. So he was a free
Indeed.
transfer from Liverpool. Played 8 games. A player of undoubted ability, but didn't really show it in the hoops. There you go. There's a wee blast for the past.
Since we're doing it, Pavel Brozek. I know it's a different position, but he came in, and in the 0 minutes that he played for us, he had as much positive impact as Nat Phillips did.
Fair enough. I don't disagree with that.
Can we just turn this into a Nat Phillips bashing for the next 3 minutes before the game?
When you look at the wages he was on, it was such a bad move. Mount Cadath, hello, fellow conspiracy theorists. You've been reading my social media pages. What a beautiful day to be a Celtic fan. Let's go out there and double down before the break. Absolutely. Kevin McCluskey, give me a prediction for this evening. What type of performance are we going to get? Who's going to shine? What is the score going to be?
I'll make a meme out of this one then. It's going to be a swashbuckling performance from Celtic. We're going to win this one 3-0 at a canter. And I don't know if you usually make these kind of predictions, but Kyogo's going to get a double. There you go.
All right. Well, I wouldn't mind seeing Kyogo getting a treble. I wouldn't mind seeing him getting a hat-trick, Kev. What was your thoughts on him being left out of the Japan squad for the Asian Cup?
Delighted. You know, it's a very selfish reaction, but I'm absolutely delighted that he's been left out because it means he gets a proper rest over winter. And when we come back after the break, he's ours. He's not still playing in the Asian Cup for Japan. The human side of me feels sorry for him because he'll obviously want to go and represent his nation and play in the Asian Cup. It's as big as the European Championships is. We can't knock it or put it down in any way. It's a massive competition. He obviously wants to be there. But selfishly, very happy that he's not.
Yeah, and Paul, this is you're speaking my language, Paul. I hope the Japanese coach is watching and Kyogo gets a hat-trick. Absolutely. Here's another player to throw in the mix. Remember Ravi Gershon? Remember? This really came in, played about 2 minutes and then left. South Scots, Gary Gillespie. I was at Gary Gillespie's debut against Falkirk. He looked brilliant. He looked absolutely great. Remember on the bus coming home at 5, going on about how great a signing he was, £1 million. And he's just a big sick note, wasn't he? Thanks everybody for getting involved. Yes, tonight it's all about putting his game to bed, hopefully getting a performance, and let us know how you're you're feeling in terms of your predictions as well. We will be back, obviously, at half-time to hear the thoughts of Kevin McCluskey, who's become something of a regular in the matchday squad. So thank you all for getting involved. If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button. We're just under 25,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. Get involved in the chat, hit the notifications bell, and give us a thumbs up for the video as well. Let's go to the action. Hopefully, we'll be talking about a Celtic victory. We'll see you at half-time. Thank you to Kevin McCluskey for joining me on a Celtic State of Mind.
Thanks.